Today I'll be giving my son's testimony. There were a lot of prayers and tears shed through this journey, but glory be to God for choosing me to witness and be the parent of a miracle. Let's start from the beginning. My son was my first pregnancy, and I was so excited and couldn't wait to see his face. When I first began my second trimester, the test for Down syndrome came back with a red flag. Being it was my first pregnancy, I immediately became covered in fear of the unknown. My mom called her prayer warriors, and I came to Searchlight for the women to pray over me and my growing belly. As each person lifted their tongues to ask God for a healthy baby, I felt a wave of reassurance wash over my body. In that moment, I knew the next test would come back negative. Glory be to God, it did. Fast forward a few weeks, I was then 22 weeks pregnant. I woke up bleeding and rushed to the hospital. Once seen by a doctor, I was given devastating news. I was dilated and there was nothing they could do to stop the baby from coming. My body began to tremble. What do you mean I had to give birth halfway through my pregnancy? What was going to happen? Was my son going to be okay? So many questions raced through my head. Doctors prepared me for what was to come. The exact phrases used were, "You will most likely have a stillbirth. If he is born alive, there's only a 10% chance of survival. There's a high possibility of deafness, blindness, disability. He's a boy, so that doesn't help his odds. You could give birth at any minute, with doctors present or without. Do you want to let nature take its course or have the NICU team step in?" I was put in a delivery room as I waited for my water to break and the process to begin. In this room, I was greeted by a nurse who made sure to show her faith. She reassured me that God was in control and had the last say. At this time, my mom once again called on her prayer warriors. A few Searchlight faces came and prayed over me in the delivery room before I gave birth. I had that same feeling wash over my body. I knew it was going to be a journey, but I had every ounce of faith that my son was going to be okay. I could feel it. So when my water broke, 15 to 20 people filled my room between doctors, nurses, and the NICU team. At 2:06 p.m., my son was born. He weighed 1 pound 3 ounces, measuring 11 3/4 inches long. He had a heartbeat but was not breathing on his own. The NICU staff quickly intubated him to give him oxygen and rushed him to the NICU. I didn't get to touch, see, or hold him, but glory be to God, he was alive. I was then given timetables. The first 24 hours would be extremely critical. The first 72 hours were the honeymoon phase. One day, things could be going very well. The next, things could be very bad. It seemed like every time we passed the time frame, we were given a new one. I didn't get to hold my son until almost a month after he was born. He was so tiny, and I had to be careful not to move so his breathing tube stayed in place. He was the smallest baby in the NICU, and everyone knew his name. His primary nurses picked him because they saw his spunk and personality shine through on day one of life. His nurse always said, "God and Tamarick are in the driver's seat. We are just along for the ride." He was a wild man, a wiggle worm. They needed weighted bean bags to keep him still, even at 1 pound. Everyone was so amazed at how well he was doing. But then on Christmas Eve, he turned blue because he held his breath, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. On New Year's Eve, I was informed he would be transported to Philadelphia for laser eye surgery. He was in jeopardy of becoming blind from being on oxygen for so long. He spent 2 weeks in Philadelphia and had to be intubated again because the anesthesia really took a toll on his body. We had prayer warriors all over the world praying, even as far as Israel. But just like every other obstacle, he surpassed expectations. He was brought back to Jersey Shore and after a few days graduated and moved across to the NICU for stronger, less critical babies. He had a regular crib, he was able to wear clothes, and eventually learned to bottle feed. His dad's team went to the Super Bowl that year, and he continued to show his silly personality. On February 21st, 2019, after 125 days in the NICU, my son was finally able to come home. He was technically 4.5 months at this point, but when adjusting for his premature birth, his adjusted age was newborn. Our NICU journey was over, but a new one began. We had to learn to care for a baby on oxygen support. Our journey has since then consisted of many doctor's appointments and therapy sessions. By April of 2019, only home for 1 month, he passed his sleep study and was able to come off the oxygen support. Glory be to God yet again. Now we could finally enjoy our son without machines and cords. By August of 2019, the eye doctors informed us that his right eye was very weak and he needed to wear a patch. There would be a strong possibility for glasses. Again, we prayed. At 7 months adjusted, he was catching and shooting. By 10 months adjusted, he was crawling. Then on October 19th, we celebrated his first birthday. This was super emotional because I was told he wouldn't be born alive, and yet there we were at the 1-year mark. He then learned to walk by 14 months adjusted. And progressed to shooting standing up. A few months later, the ophthalmologist told my mom that his eyes were getting worse and there was a strong possibility he would need glasses. She instantly prayed and had the doctors check his eyes again. God delivered. Not only did he no longer need to wear his patch, but his eyes showed equal strength. No glasses. The doctor said he was truly a miracle, being how close he was to being blind in the hospital. Again, glory be to God. Now he is a crazy, silly 2-year-old boy. He loves basketball, music, and roughhousing. At 22 weeks, he had a grade 2 brain bleed, grade 4 being the worst, a hole in his heart, borderline fighting blindness, and chronic lung disease. Now at 2 years old, the hole in his heart has completely closed, his vision is great, the brain bleed had no effects, and his chronic lung disease is being maintained. He spent 125 days in the NICU, and this was our favorite story. Oh, the places you'll go. There are points to be scored, there are games to be won, and the magical things you can do with that ball will make you the winningest winner of all. Fame. You'll be famous as famous can be, with the whole wide world watching you win on TV.